English grandmother never allowed past her lips a single bite of spaghetti or other foreign muck. Some people may call her a racist for it, but others may point out the hypocrisy in shunning Italian food while simultaneously embracing what the English call pub curry. But my grandmother never forgot her Rosie the Riveter years in the Sheffield munition factory, or my grandfather's post in Cairo that left him deaf, or the birth of her first child in a shell-shocked hospital with no doctor and no electricity. She never forgot the sounds of the bombs on blacked-out streets, so she manifested her anger. She took her revenge for a ravaged city in the only way she could. A hate for all things German and Italian, right down to the noodles. You may have realized that I'm an anchor baby, a first-generation American. I am native born, raised in Carolina, learned in the ways of collard green cornbread and grits, food that ties the cultures of the South together. Southerners, black or textile mill white, can bond over a shared food tradition. A tradition of fatback and pickled hot peppers, flavoring sharecropper staples. A tradition born from never having enough. Yet in this new South, some Southerners may have a more PC vocabulary, but the generational racism has not been erased from their hearts. Southern cultures raised in the isolation of slavery, then segregation, have developed their own flavors. A quilt sewn of diverse traditions that develop their own flavors with indigo, sumac, and black walnut. Our cultural differences are what make the American South great, not a reason to hate. Meanwhile, friends of a darker hue are refused service on Greenville's supposedly welcoming Main Street. How shocking that an American citizen is treated as if he wore an invisibility cloak. Meanwhile, on that same Main Street, my black business partner and I are harassed by a 30-something in a tie for the crime of walking shoulder to shoulder from Coffee to Noma Square. If my grandmother was alive today, I would tell her to forgive the terrifying 1940s and the undernourished 1950s and take a twirl with a plate of Mussolini linguine. And South Carolina, today I say to you, we must stop smothering our young, gifted, and cultured beneath a hooded history. Instead, let's celebrate a rich, God-given diversity that can make our Carolina future sweeter than our tea. Thank you. Thank you, Vera, for giving such a wonderful history. I think the most important thing for me as I entered the poetry slam team, I was like the little sister back then. You know, I was a baby. I was running my first poetry slam when I was 19 years old. The features would show up and be like, so who's running this thing? I'd be like, oh, it's me. And they were like, you're like a kid. And I did come up here to Greenville. I'm from Greenville. I came up to come to Furman in 1996 and joined up with my older sisters, Vera and Glennis, who took me under their wings and taught me a lot of great stuff. It was a really amazing experience because the really most important thing that you know to Poetry Slam is that it gives people a community. It's a place where people can get to know other people with shared interests. I do have a few things that I prepared that I would like to say. Like TED Talks, Poetry Slam does have a strong connection to creating an open forum for ideas worth spreading. Poetry Slam today provides a safe space where people not only of diverse racial backgrounds, but people from different age groups, varying socioeconomic backgrounds, poets with only a high school diploma all the way up to a doctorate degree can come together on an even playing field. Anyone can sign up to participate in a poetry slam for the low cost of only $5.
Only $5!
There is no audition. It doesn't matter who you know. It doesn't matter if it's your first slam or your 10th slam. All are welcome. Poetry Slam is a platform for both emerging poets as well as veteran performers. Where else can a newbie share the stage with their poetic heroes? Often the perception of Poetry Slam is that it caters only to marginalized voices. But in fact, Poetry Slam continues to be one of the most diverse art forms in America today, with voices from both the mainstream and marginalized together on one stage and in one audience. This democratic model creates an open, discursive space where anyone can feel heard. The Poetry Slam is a sounding board. It is a soapbox. It is free therapy. Over the years, we've had poets from all walks of life. Employees of Walmart, Michelin, and BMW, students of Greenville Tech, Clemson, and Furman, teenagers, retired engineers, YFF newscasters, trained actors, professional wrestlers, and U.S. veterans. Our slammers have gone on to Def Poetry Jam, Verses and Flow, the Kennedy Center, MFAs, national tours, and doctorates. But Poetry Slam is not just about the poets on stage. When construction worker Mark Smith,
so what?
When construction worker Mark Smith,
so what?
Created this social and literary arts movement, he not only rescued poetry from obscurity, but he gave it back to the people, back to the audience. Poetry is by design a crowd inclusive event that encourages active listeners. It comes from the folk tradition. Audience members will hear both new ideas from marginalized perspectives, taking them outside their own experiences, but they will also find their own heartaches, their own trials, their deepest feelings expressed articulately and figuratively on stage. Too often in today's world, we are plagued by feelings of isolation and loneliness. But Poetry Slam connects people to our shared humanity, our shared values, our shared stories. The Poetry Slam can be a cathartic experience for both performers and listeners. And as is so often articulated, Poetry Slam is community. Poetry Slam saves lives. This year in Greenville, we sent our 15th slam team into the world to compete against teams of poets from across the country. These poets, so much like the hero's journey of Joseph Campbell, go out into an unknown world where they meet a new community, learn from there, experience shared ideas, and then bring those experiences back to Greenville, South Carolina. Just as our poets benefit from the experiences of visiting big city slams and meeting poets from across the country, the National Poetry Slam scene has benefited from meeting us. Our Sunday night is a tourist destination for Poetry Slam fans across. So, in 2004, the very first ever World Poetry Slam, which has gone on to cities like Vancouver, Detroit, Chicago, the first sad city in the entire world to host that was Greenville, South Carolina. Yeah, right here. Yeah. Actually, also the first Southern poet to be on the executive council of the National Poetry Slam executive group. It was me. Right. Before then, they had never had a Southerner from the entire a lot of new events, like the Carolina Slam Tour. We started here in 2005, and that still happens across the Southeast, where basically 4 different teams of poets get together and slam in a city. We also piloted the first ever all-women championship slam. We came up with that idea here in Greenville in 2006, and that went on to become what is now called the Women of the World Poetry Slam, which started in 2008 and moves from city to city around the United States. In 2014, under the directorship of Moody Black and Kimberly the Goddess, we had the Wisdom Poetry. Give them a round of applause. Here. And just this past year, our Sunday night open mic was recognized as National Open Mic of the Year for the entire country. And then finally this past year, so when I say that we went out into the world to learn from the world, but the world did learn from Greenville, South Carolina. We took things to them. In 2016, our Greenville Slam team came in 4th at the 75 Poetry Slam. And I was very lucky this year to be inducted as a Legend of the South at the National Poetry Slam. I say that because I'm proud of Greenville. I'm proud. I grew up here. I went to high school here. I went to college here. I went to Furman. I'm a hometown girl. We've had a lot of great poetry slam teams over the years that we've sent them. I've just always been so proud of everything we've accomplished here. But at this time, we're going to do what y'all been waiting for. Are y'all ready for a poetry slam? Yeah! Are y'all ready for a poetry slam? Yeah! The most important thing about a poetry slam is that it's not about the poets. It's about 3 groups of people. The audience, which is you guys. My judges. Judges, where are you at? Raise your hand. I got 5 randomly selected members. I have to make sure they haven't escaped while I've been talking. Do I still have 5? Yes, I think I do. 5 randomly chosen members. And I would tell y'all, even at the National Poetry Slam, where they're competing for $5,000, they still select 5 randomly chosen members of the audience to judge the finals and all the preliminary bouts of the National Poetry Slam. I got pretty lucky this year because I was the bout manager, so I got to pick the 5 people. So that's always pretty fun to get to do that. At every National Poetry Slam event, you may not realize this, but there's a group that basically has codified everything that happens at a poetry slam. So that it's uniform. No matter what town you go to anywhere in America, the poetry slam is going to be pretty much the same. Welcome everyone. Today is October the 11th, and this is Zen Poetry Slam coming to you live from Greenville, South Carolina. My name is Kimberly Simms, and I will be your MC for the evening. The Poetry Slam is a competition invented in the 1980s by a Chicago construction worker named Mark Smith. So what? In which performed poetry is judged by 5 randomly chosen members of the audience who may or may not know anything about poetry, but they know what their heart tells them. Poets have a limited time frame of 3 minutes. They cannot use any musical accompaniment. They cannot use any costumes. They cannot use any props. The judges will score their pieces on a scale of 0 to 10 using 1 decimal place. 0 being a poem that is so bad that it's not bad enough that you wrote it, but to think you should come here tonight and share it with us, 0. All the way on up to a 10. Now a 10, the audience is going crazy. They're like throwing up their arms and going into, they're like speaking in tongues. They're so excited, amazing things are happening. 10. Now, the high and the low score of each performance are tossed, and the middle 3 are added together for a total possible score of 30. Points are deducted for violating the time limit, but nobody, y'all don't have to worry about that. We do have a timekeeper. Now, judges, we do beseech you to remain unswayed by the audience. Audience, try to sway them. Please score the poets on the same criteria, ignoring whatever boisterous reaction your judgment elicits. Audience, let the judges and the poets know how you feel about the job that they're doing, but do be respectful. Now, are you guys ready to start the Poetry Slam?
Yeah.
Are y'all ready to start the Poetry Slam? You are not ready to start the Poetry Slam because sacrificial blood has not been spilled on the stage. The poetry gods demand a sacrifice. Now, what's going to happen is we're going to bring up what's called, used to be called a clearing poet, sometimes called a sorbet poet, often called a sacrificial poet. At the National Poetry Slam, you'll actually hear people like bawing, they're like me making goat noises in the audience and whatnot. But basically, this is a calibration poet. It's a chance for the judges to practice, because they've never been to a poetry slam before, right? And then that one poet they hear first will kind of act as kind of a person for them to think back to as they get the scores for the rest of the night. So, judges, do you feel prepared? You're going to write down a number after this poet. You're going to use one decimal place, so like 8.9, 9.2, 9.4, and then we're going to write it all down and add it up for you, right? Is everybody, are y'all ready to start the Poetry Slam?
Yeah.
Please give it up for our first poet of the night, Vera.